good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and good night. Thank you for downloading the Faith Life Podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Nathan, here with my co-host, Pastor Matt.
Hey, guys.
Hopefully you're having a good day today, Matt.
It's been a morning already.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good.
It's okay, Matt. You know what? Between it's you and me, we're here with a million of our faithful fans. You can be real.
It's true. All right.
It's not a great day. It's okay.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
A million of our faithful fans.
Right?
That's weird.
And that's right. You, one of those million faithful fans. If you have not done so already, please take a minute. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you downloaded this. And if you're watching it on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment, all the good stuff so that we can connect with you further. And last but not least, if you'd like to be a part of the show, you can email podcast@dfchurch.com. That's podcast@dfchurch.com.
That was good.
Yeah, so we've got a pretty fun show today, I think. We're going to do another reaction. So last week we reacted to an AI list of what Christians misunderstood. And today Matt has a list, not from an AI, that we'll react to. We're going to talk about some news because there's some crazy stuff happening in the world right now. But really an exciting thing. Those of you last week who remember we talked about this, audio listeners are going to have to use your imagination. But I'm holding up the box of Chucky Cheese frozen pizza. So audio listeners, again, use your imagination. It's a big box that says Chucky Cheese pepperoni pizza. You see the man himself, Charles Edward Cheese. That's not Edward. Entertainment. Charles Entertainment Cheese. This is a good source of calcium, it says. It is made with 100% real mozzarella. And you get 1,000 bonus e-tickets.
Ooh.
See back for details.
Let's go.
So if we can go to Chucky Cheese, we're starting up 1,000.
With 1,000 e-tickets.
E-ticket. But I think that's how they do it
You
now.
get an e-prize now.
Yeah. The U.S. has inspected and passed by the Department of Agriculture.
I don't trust them anyway, so that's okay.
Why not? They never would do anything wrong. You should keep frozen. It's not ready to eat. Cook thoroughly.
Did we do that?
We did. And on the back, you get a maze that takes you to find the slice of pizza. You get the baking instructions. You get this little coupon. See, I can take this
to
Chuck E. Cheese.
And
you get 1,000 bonus e-tickets with any food purchase.
Oh, so I have to buy more pizza?
More of their pizza.
Can I just get a Coke?
No,
I don't even
like
Coke
this.
either.
It does say made in the USA, contains a bioengineered food ingredient. Not multiple, but one of them.
And
one of these ingredients.
They're not going to tell you which one it is.
No.
It's up to you to try and figure this out.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. Now,
here's why you can't trust the Department of Agriculture. Ready? There's an article from a couple years ago. The USDA has become an inefficient monster that promotes products that are bad for consumers and the environment. Let's replace it with a Department of Food.
Whoa.
Here's
the thing. I don't have an
Super
issue
fun.
with a bioengineered food ingredient because we've been actually bioengineering food for hundreds and hundreds of years. We're just better at it now than we used to be. And it can make things cheaper, more affordable, and healthier.
Nathan.
Yeah.
We should eat this because I can smell it and I'm hungry because I didn't eat breakfast because I knew we were Chuck E. Cheese pizza-ing.
Yeah.
And so
you're that hungry. I wanted to really. This has the oleo resin of paprika in it. What is the oleo resin of paprika? I don't know. But
spell that word? Not the resin part, the one before that.
OLEORESIN.
Oh, wait, that's one word.
Yeah, oleo resin.
I thought you were trying to say like oil of resin.
Yeah, no, it's the oleo resin of paprika. All right, we're gonna take a bite. We're gonna see how it goes. Matt doesn't look great so far. Sorry, audio listeners, you're gonna
we're gonna give you
use your imagination.
No, I'm gonna give you the great description here.
Oh, good.
So it smelled like a typical frozen pizza, just like sitting in the room. But when you get it up close, I get a little bit of kitchen sink.
That's not a good start. Do we have paper towels? Did you say? Matt?
Yeah, they're right on the floor.
Oh, I see. Whoa.
All right, so I'm going to take my first bite, and I can't stand mukbang, so I'm not going to do it into the microphone.
I'm not
just so you know, there might be a minute of silence, but we'll give you our feedback in a second.
I'll talk while you take a bite, and then we'll trade. So Matt's going to take his bite right now. You can see in the movie The Princess Bride, when they go to torture Wesley, he puts this machine that uses suction on him to suck away years of his life. And he said, I just took away 1 year of your life. Well, I might one day go up to 5, but I don't know what that'll do to you. So I feel like this pizza is the food equivalent where Matt's lifespan is now just lowering with every bite he takes. My prediction, although I guess it's not great now because I'm already seeing his facial stuff, is that it's going to be fine. It's not going to be awful, but it's not going to be good. Matt, what do you think?
I won't buy it again.
Okay. What were the odds that you'd be like, okay, guys, this is our new Friday night ritual?
No, it's 0. It would never be my new. We make homemade pizzas on Friday night, so like nothing's gonna top that. Well, we've talked about the great pizza places in the past. Some of those might, but if I were to go get a frozen pizza again,
yes,
at the $6.97 price point,
yes,
I'm getting literally any other frozen pizza that exists.
Okay. Well, now I'm curious. I'm gonna take a bite as well.
Yeah. So while he's taking a bite, the texture is really meh. You have a little bit of chewy, and we put this in the oven. We cooked it right. You have this what's supposed to be the crisp of the crust, but it almost gives you like slightly soggy, stale, flavorless graham cracker. Maybe a saltine without the salt on it, the unsalted saltine crackers. That it's just like, why would you do that? The cheese, sure, it might be real mozzarella, but it's not high quality mozzarella. The sauce is kind of lacking in flavor. The pepperoni is also fairly bland. I think all in all, it's a pretty bland pizza, and the texture is not the best.
Agreed. It's that frozen cardboard. It is very cardboard-esque. It's got a chill. That's when the ghost of Chucky Cheese enters your soul. It's not terrible. It's, it's further reinforcing my point that even bad pizza is fine for the most part. Apparently there's some out there that are just really bad. It's fine. I don't hate it. If I were going out for $6, I mean, usually you can get a DiGiorno for $5, and I think that's probably better.
Have you heard of Tombstone?
Uh-huh. Do you remember the commercials for that?
Yeah. Those are $3.97 at Walmart. This was $6.97.
Wow.
So maybe that's the one we try next week.
Yeah, Tombstone. We'll try Tombstone. Our producer Jeremiah says, will I take a second piece? Yeah, I might. I'm hungry. The old commercials for that, there was a guy lined up for the firing squad, and they'd say, what do you want on your tombstone? And he'd say, pepperoni and sausage. That's pretty good.
Yeah, his question of will I take a second piece? By the time we're done with this podcast, this pizza will be gone. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to eat it at all.
Right, exactly. I'm trying not to eat on the microphone. Well, okay, so that's the pizza. Why don't you write in, listeners, comment, email us, podcast@dfchurch.com. Let us know if you decided to join us in the experiment. Like, if you had wanted, it would have been fine. As soon as you saw us grabbing this pizza, pause the episode, go grab a Chucky Cheese pizza, cook it, and then you could have been eating along with us this whole time. I should have told him to do that first.
We're having breakfast, lunch together.
Oh, brunch. There's a word for that, Matt. Okay. Well, next week, new pizza. Have you seen that guy who does the one bite pizza reviews? He's like famous for it. He'll go to a restaurant, he's filming on his phone, he gets a pizza, he takes a bite, and he gives it a review. And he is apparently very well known, very famous. Like, people swear by his review.
Does he have 1 million faithful fans like we do?
He probably has 2 million.
Oh.
We could get him on the podcast as a guest, not related to spirituality at all, but it would be an interesting guest to talk about pizza.
Yeah.
Does pizza have a spiritual component? Only if you eat really bad pizza and you die.
Or you eat really good pizza.
And it reminds you of God's goodness.
It reminds you of the goodness of the gifts of God. Yeah. Hey, I talked with that listener who mentioned that they had worked at Round Table at one point in time. Talked to them about their experience. It was years ago. And they remembered actually, like, how much of the ingredients got put on the pizzas, and like, it was a cup of this or whatever, and what number 24 was this one. And I was really impressed because it had been many years since this person worked there. But yeah, fond memories, good pizza, good people that I hung out with there eating the pizza. So does that play into the goodness of something? Like a meal, is it better with good? Like, do you have a better memory of what the meal was like because of the people that you were with rather than the actual quality of food?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or even if it's bad, you have the shared experience of all eating something bad together.
So does that make it good though? Because I'm just trying to think if there was a situation where, oh man, yeah, I ate there. It was really good. Was it? Do I actually remember what that food was like? Or do I remember I went there with a bunch of people and we had a good time? I don't know. That's the question.
I'm sure if it was really bad, it doesn't necessarily make it right. It's a good memory of bad food. Like I can think about,
good memory of
I
bad
can think
food.
about a group
like that.
where we have a common joke of, oh yeah, remember that one time we ate that, it was awful.
And we all vomited everywhere later. Mm-hmm. Sorry if you're eating pizza right now and I just said that word and it triggered you.
It shouldn't trigger you. Vomit.
How
I
dare
said
you.
it again. So, oh yeah, remember when we ate that fish paste or whatever?
Fish paste that was supposed to be
Oh.
refrigerated and we didn't do it, but we ate it anyway.
Yeah, that was
It was so
nasty.
good. On Triscuits, right?
On Triscuits.
Which I don't like Triscuits to begin with. So it
I
was
don't
like a
mind
double.
the Triscuit if there's something good on it. That was not. So let's segue into the news segment. I think there's a couple things I want to talk about. The first one, for me, the most exciting news as of this morning.
Wait, what?
This morning.
What's happening?
Was announced officially the next Nintendo console.
Oh, the Switch 2?
The Switch 2, they're calling it.
Okay.
They showed off a quick little render of how it's going to work because this thing had been leaked like crazy.
Right.
Like CES, we talked about that recently, had some of the accessory companies where they are showing off the accessories they were making for it with mock-up consoles there that people could see and take pictures of. So, excuse me, they had to get something out there. They had to talk about it. I think what it sounds like is that there's more information coming on April 2nd, which means it's not going to come out till summertime, which makes me sad because I was hoping for an April 2nd release, get the new console going.
For your birthday.
Right for my birthday. See, Nintendo could have given me a great birthday present. Instead, we're going to have just a new, April Fool's. No, then they would do it on April 1st. But it's cool. The Joy-Cons on the side magnet in. They don't just snap in anymore.
like
There's
that.
all sorts of neat stuff going on. Anyway, it's not really that exciting other than I'm a big nerd and I'm very excited for it. And it's been a long time that the Switch has been out.
Admitting is the first step to recovery.
I don't need to recover from something awesome.
Being a big nerd.
Being a big nerd is awesome. Yeah.
Speaking
rule
of
the
big
earth.
nerd, we had a fun time this past Sunday here at the church.
Yeah, we did.
We had a
Oh,
whole bunch of
man.
us gather together for a game night, and so people brought board games and other fun stuff. There was this Keepy Uppy Bluey game, which is a blast.
We played a card game based off Alien. It was scary, and we all lost. It was cooperative, and we lost.
I played The Bible is Funny, which is funny. It's made by the same people who do Cards Christians Like.
Yep.
Which I have that game, and that one's really fun. And I think is The Bible is Funny yours?
It was ours. Yeah, we brought that.
However, I will say, you have to be willing to laugh.
Yes.
Know that you're taking Bible verses out of context,
Correct.
and then it's funny.
Right.
Right. So there's almost this possible element of, are we allowed to?
Are you allowed to
mock it a little bit?
You can have fun. Like
It's having fun. It's not mocking it. Yeah.
There was this funny book I had as a kid called "You Can't Curl Your Hair with Holy Rollers," and it was a bunch of just like funny and dumb little like jokes and things like that that are all biblically humor based. Like, it's like when you say, where was the first dating service mentioned in the Bible? And it's in Song of Solomon, and it says, "Catch for us the foxes."
That's good. You were allowed to have that as a kid?
My parents had it, and I just snagged it and read it and laughed. Although I don't know. I think a lot of it I didn't understand.
An Insider's Guide to Church Life. Is that the book right there?
That's the book right there. We should get a copy of it and read it on the podcast because it was so funny as a kid.
Can I read its little
read its little blurb for me.
Definitely the feel-good book of the season. This was released January 1st, 1993.
Okay, so I was 10.
The feel-good book of the season. This entertaining work underlines the fun and fundamentalism by lampooning such subjects as verses to justify anything, the consecrated consumer, and a fashion and theology guide.
I don't even remember some of this. We really should probably pick up a copy. Read it on the podcast. I'm sure you can't buy it new. It's got to be used, right?
You can buy it new.
Wow. There's
only one left in stock, so order soon.
How many years is that?
21.
93?
31 years ago. 32 years ago now. Yeah.
32 years ago. Oh, I just told everybody on the podcast how old I am.
In 2014, this review said, timeless humor. 20 years later, and I can't put this book down. It's a staple in our household. And another review. We're here for you guys. We're going to do the hard work of research for you. Mm-hmm. Refreshingly witty faith. This book is beautifully written with timeless wit and charm. It's refreshing to see Nolan and Surratt, the authors maybe, whimsically speak of faith without taking themselves too seriously. So speaking of not taking yourself too seriously and hysterically funny, The Bible is Funny is a great game. Mm-hmm. Super fun. And they use different translations of the verses in order to make it slightly funnier because, some words are translated in the King James very uniquely versus what the NIV or NASB or NLT might say. And so, yeah, just super fun. Don't take yourself too seriously. We're allowed to have fun, I think, maybe as Christians. We have a podcast about that. You can go back and find it. But yeah, it's good.
So it has free shipping from Prime. It's only $12. Yeah. I might be picking this up and we can talk about it because that's funny. Its reviews are a 2.8 though, based off 5 reviews. What's the 1-star review? It says, I can. 1 star. I can twirl my curly locks without holy rollers. I just use my index finger and twirl while I drive, fiddle my taxes, watch my favorite TV program, listen to my Neil Diamond albums, or if I'm just cutting off a length. It's such a waste buying products that replace nature's way. Not phenomenal. F-E-R-N-O-M-I-N-A-L. Phenomenal.
That's not a word.
What?
Did they mean not phenomenal?
And it's from a user named Mike Gee.
Or is it Mike G?
Maybe. But here's my question. Is he thinking that this was literally about curling your hair?
No, I think this person is literally just mocking the book.
That makes no sense. That's confusing.
Welcome to the internet. Well, that makes no sense, and that's confusing.
Let's go into the other news right now. I think we are, and this might be on the surface. The question is going to be, does this really matter? Or maybe it's a good thing. I think there's deeper issues at stake, though. We're a few days away from TikTok being banned in our country.
Okay.
Now, whether or not you like TikTok, I think the question, will it be bought by Elon? No, I don't think they want to sell, and I don't think they will. They don't have really, I don't think they will, personally. But the bigger question for me is it appropriate for the government to censor an app like this? Like, it's at the Supreme Court right now. And so this is where it's going to become a lot bigger, because if this holds up, that yes, the government can control apps in this way, I think that opens up the door for a lot worse things for the government to be able to do should they choose.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. going back and listening to the hearings they had, a year ago now about TikTok, the concern from the government is that it's a company owned by China and they're using it to spy on us. It's not necessarily the free speech aspect, right? Because I can say and post the same things on X, Instagram, or Facebook.
Right. Here's the thing though. I listened to a little bit of the Supreme Court arguments from both sides where both lawyers from each side, the government and TikTok, were talking. And it sounds like the government has kind of changed a little bit of its argument, because during all those hearings they had talked about and have since well implemented, where all the data is kept in America. It's run in a data center in Texas. Nothing goes back to the Chinese government. And what it seemed more like they were saying is that the Chinese government can influence the algorithm to make us hate our country, love their country, and divide us. And so because of that, it needs to be banned. And it's like, okay, then you really do have to ban every social media, because you want to talk about division. That happens regardless of TikTok. And you want to talk about people manipulating us. Look at what Facebook has admitted to doing recently in the past few elections.
Right.
And Twitter and places like that, where they are censoring at the request of the government and they are hiding things. And it's really interesting seeing all this is that, Meta on the Facebook and Instagram side, Mark Zuckerberg recently announced that they are getting rid of all of their fact checkers and just allowing the community to fact check itself. And they're taking a much bigger step back from censorship, admitting essentially that yes. And he said there's records of the government pressuring them to censor certain things on their platform. Wow. And that's crazy to me. And that's why I think the bigger issue, and again, tying this back in as a Christian, if what we say becomes unpopular, which it already is a lot of the time, and the way that we can tell people that is being controlled by the government, that becomes a bigger issue to me. And so I think regardless of your thoughts on TikTok, the implications and the wide-ranging impact is a lot bigger.
Yeah, I mean, this obviously doesn't affect our international audience, but for our million fans here stateside.
Right, the million are just here.
Yeah.
How big is our international audience?
A couple.
Million?
Billion. Cells. A couple billion cells. Yeah. Right, you have a lot of people who are on TikTok who are actually doing some pretty cool things as far as faith-based content goes. I think
Definitely.
of Mr. B. Is that his name? The guy who was the happy apologist with the mug and the pin.
I love that guy, yeah.
He does a fantastic job of interacting, responding to other content on TikTok, and talking about what the Bible actually says in relation to that. I think of Stuart Connectal.
Super good.
He's got a big TikTok following. And again, standing before people and defending his faith.
Right.
Yeah, there's just a lot of really positive things that can come from social media. Now, are there a lot of dangers? Yeah, as Christians, do we need to do a really good job of filtering what we allow in? Absolutely. As parents, do we need to do what we can to protect our kids? Yeah. Is TikTok inherently evil? No. Does TikTok have evil on it? Yeah.
Sure.
So does everything else in our world. And so I know a lot of people our producer Jeremiah said humans, hashtag evil, right?
Yeah,
a lot of people tried to, like, as Christians, ban TikTok right away and say Christians should not be on TikTok. It's, that cesspool of filth and all that fun stuff. Scum and villainy.
Yeah, that's where my mind just went immediately.
But yeah, it's every social media platform has that. It also has good. And so as Christians, I think we have a couple of responses here. One, my hope's not in TikTok, so I don't have to be quite as, bummed out about it. I mean, I can be sad about things, but like it doesn't shake my world.
Right.
Like I've heard some people responding on TikTok this way. Like I heard that there are people doing, and I haven't been on TikTok in a while, so I haven't seen it myself, but they're doing like these big goodbyes on TikTok, and like people are crying, saying goodbye to their followers on TikTok. And I'm like, my first thought is, don't you also have an Instagram? Just say, hey, I'll still be here. Come follow me. I don't know.
It's a different platform with a different audience. I mean, I know there are some people who their livelihood is from TikTok. There are people who make a living as a content creator, and they say, I don't make the kind of money I make on YouTube or on Instagram that I can make on TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true. So
there are some legitimate people who are going to be, and obviously all of the people running the US based section of TikTok are going to be out of work in Texas. The other thing that is just, I think, hilarious to me about this, our producers, it's time to go to Blue Sky. Now, Blue Sky is like a Twitter alternative. Here's what they are going. Ironically, another color name in the app. Right now, the number one downloaded app in the Apple App Store. The name of it is in Chinese, but all of us are calling it Red Note. And what this app is TikTok is also, it's kind of funny, TikTok is banned in China because of the amount of censorship that China does. They wouldn't allow TikTok. So as an aside, I think that's hilarious, is like what the government is doing right now is closely corresponds to what the Chinese communist government is doing in terms of saying we need to control what you're allowed to watch, because the government in China has heavy censorship. So the TikTok was banned in China because the government couldn't censor it, and the government released their own version of it. They created their own app called Red Note. And so this app is only in Chinese. You have to just go through and accept the terms and conditions in Chinese, and then you can get deep into a menu, and buried in there you can find an option to switch it to English and then interact with it in English. And by the hundreds of thousands, it looks like, to get it to be up at number one on the App Store, TikTok users are going to go into the actually run by the Chinese government, censored, where all your data is being sent right to them. They are in full control of it, and they're just going out there hanging out with Chinese people, and they're all talking and laughing about cats. And there's a guy who's like, oh, hey, thanks, we're your spies, thanks for coming over here to this platform, like just joking around. And but apparently China is now scrambling to hire English-speaking censors because of how much that they censor even in their own app. Now there's this huge flood of English-speaking people just crashing in, and they have to now try to find out how to censor that. But already within a few days, it was like videos on there now have English subtitles, and like there's just it's really funny. You can like dig into this, but like the pettiness, I think the U.S. government maybe maybe just underestimated the amount of pettiness of all the people. Because there's 100 million people in our country on TikTok. That's a third of our population.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And to say you don't want us because you're afraid that the Chinese government might influence the way we think or vote or whatever. All right, we're going to just go use their actual Communist Party's app and give them all our data anyway. To me, that's just funny.
Because why not?
And I'd imagine if the TikTok ban doesn't happen, they'll all just come back. I don't imagine that this is the viable future. I feel like this is more of a protest move.
Yeah.
To say, okay, this is where we're going to go. So on Sunday, we'll know theoretically, because even so they said that when the ban goes into effect, it will just keep the app from being downloadable on the App Store or updated and stuff like that. So theoretically, they said functionality could still work for a while. But I think TikTok has said no. If you're going to ban it, we will just turn it off on Sunday. And so what I've heard is that they will intentionally just shut it off, and you'll only have a message saying this has been shut off due to the government. Feel free to call your congressman. So I don't know. Again, as a Christian, like you said, there's a lot of good stuff on there, and there's a lot of opportunities for us to share the gospel. And so while we don't need to put our hope in it, we do need to pay attention to things that are happening around us in our country and the government that might impact our ability to share the gospel.
Yeah.
That's how we'll leave it.
And use whatever platform you have to spread the hope, spread the gospel.
Right.
Point people towards Jesus.
Like a podcast.
Yep. Real quick, other thing in the news, just, because we're not going to have a podcast till after it's done. Inauguration happens on Monday.
Yeah.
So
that'll be kind of fun.
That'll be something maybe we can touch on a little bit next week, depending on everything that happens.
On what happens. Carrie Underwood is singing there.
Oh.
So that's nice.
She sings the Thursday Night Football anthem.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty neat, huh?
Yeah, I've heard about football.
Yeah. You watched a game once recently.
I didn't watch a game. I watched a few minutes of a game recently because I wanted to see. I wanted to see what all the fuss was about.
Oh.
I did see a guy kick somebody, and that was fun.
That's good. All right, you ready? We're moving on.
All right, that's the news. But again, email us, podcast@dfchurch.com. Let us know what you think about the inauguration, about TikTok, or about the Nintendo Switch. I'd love to hear all your thoughts.
Do you like Nathan?
I do like Nathan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you, listener? Do you like Just kidding. Don't answer that question.
Don't answer that. No.
Do you like asking the question why?
Do I like asking the question why? Yes.
Okay, good. Because this article, this person is asking why, I think. By asking why, this person has uncovered 10 things that Christians like to do that aren't biblical. So this is an article on crosswalk.com by Lori Hatcher, published March 6, 2023. So we're going to go through them. 10 things that Christians like to do that are not biblical. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the article title. Now, some of these are going to be like, does anyone really like to do that?
Right.
And some,
By like to do, it means that we
sin.
do.
I like to sin.
Well, I think
but it's not biblical.
does a little bit.
Yep. Okay.
Paul said that.
Now, this starts at number 1 and goes to 10. I don't know if they have them in any particular order,
That's
so
fine.
I'm just going to go
number
through.
1. Let's do this, man.
Number 1 is worry.
Right. So this is your question. Do we like to worry?
Right,
No, I
yeah.
don't. Well, some people maybe. Some people might want to just that they don't feel like they're like, I don't know. They want to sit in it, right? It's like you don't have to worry. You can choose to say, you know what? I'm going to move away from this.
Right.
And I'm going to follow, Jesus said, don't worry.
Yeah,
I'm
so
going
I don't know
to
if we
work on
like
that.
to. It's something we
do.
that we shouldn't do as much, right? Philippians 4:6-7, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus.
Right.
So the writer of this article says that worrying is probably the most common thing that Christians, again, like to do that isn't biblical.
We do.
It disturbs our days. It steals sleep from our nights. It causes ulcers, panic attacks, and a host of other physical and emotional ills. Worst of all, it's a sin that stands in direct disobedience to God's word.
Right.
And here's a really interesting quote from Lee Roberson, founder of the Tennessee Temple University.
Tennessee Temple.
He said this: worry is nothing but practical infidelity. The person who worries reveals his lack of trust in God and that he's trusting too much in self. So I think a lot of people worry a lot about a lot of things.
Right.
How do we not worry so much? Because I'm thinking you have the California wildfires, right? And a lot of people are obviously worried for their property, their lives even, their health because they're breathing out all this smoke. We were just at staff meeting yesterday praying for several people who are worried about their job situation and what's going to happen with that. Worry seems to be second nature to us.
Yeah, we do like to worry. So the question is, how do we not? Our brains are going to go there. And so what do? Well, we remind ourselves of God and how he's said to not worry and that he has said he'll take care of us. And maybe that's a time to sit and remember the times that God has taken care of you, right?
Okay.
If I can look back and I can see, you know what? I remember that 10 years ago, I was really worried about this.
But
and
God.
and what?
but God.
But God took care of it. Like I can remember I got, I had a wife, a couple kids at this point. I'm trying to remember timeline of when
he had
exactly.
a wife.
I had a wife. I still do, but I had one also.
Okay.
No, all right. So I'm trying to remember the timing wise. I had a wife. I had at that point acquired a wife, and I had at least one kid, maybe two, depending on the timing of this. And this is also a funny story of be careful what you tell Matt, apparently, where this is before I worked here. And I had said, Matt,
I remember the story.
I said, Matt, I know we're doing this really great winter retreat with the youth group, and I would love to go. He's like, is there any way? And I was like, I just don't think I can get the time off of work to go to this winter retreat. And Matt was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. I said, the only way that I would be able to go to this, and I was just joking. I was like, I'd have to get fired, and then I'd be able to go. Like a day later, I got fired.
Yes, you went to winter retreat as one of our chaperones.
Retreat. It was great. I'm assuming Matt did some sort of voodoo hex on me.
Good.
But I don't know. Now,
things Christians like to do that aren't biblical.
Voodoo hexes. Do we like to do that? Maybe. I did go to Voodoo Donuts once. Does that count?
Oh, I had donuts from there. They're kind of good.
So that was a time where it would be very easy to worry, but I can look back and I can see how God took care of me. And so because of that, the next time I'm in any type of a situation where I'm worrying, I can think, well, you know what? God took care of me then. He will take care of me again.
That's good. Yeah, I think, and then Philippians 4, right? Present your request to God, right?
Right.
Everything.
Pray about
prayer. Yep. All right, number 2. Speaking of praying.
We got to get moving.
Yeah.
We got a lot to get to.
Speaking of praying for God's presence.
Ooh.
Right? God be with us. God meet us here. God blah, blah, blah.
I was hoping that was like with a T.
Oh, like
P-R-E. Yeah.
The gifts of God. Yeah, you can pray for this.
But yeah.
Matthew 28:20, Jesus tells the disciples, I am with you always to the end of the age. Psalm 139, where shall I go from your spirit? Where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you're there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, your hand shall lead me, your right hand shall hold me. Like he's always with us.
Right.
Not just like with us,
right,
but as believers.
And dwelling in us.
In us.
But we can grieve the Holy Spirit, right? We constrain that relationship. So maybe instead the prayer needs to be help me to come back to you, God, because I think it's not that God ever leaves us, but I think we constrain that. And I think we need to be careful to define what that means, because I think that praying for his presence might sometimes, not always, might entail solely an emotional feeling,
right?
Whereas that's not necessarily what we mean by God's presence, right? It's not to discount our feelings, and I think we do that to our detriment. Often is we only focus on the intellectual, forgetting that God has made us intellectual and emotional. There is an emotional component, and we can feel something emotionally from our connection to God. I can also feel something emotionally from a good pizza. Not this one.
Yeah.
But
you said good pizza, so we know it's not this one. It's more I'm not praying for God to like be there.
Right.
Because he is. It's more, God, help me to be aware of your presence that already exists, to depend on you, to trust in your guidance, to follow where you lead type of thing. And I think most of the time that's the heart behind that prayer. But we often as Christians, we use words that really don't make sense.
Right. They're right.
And we might get into a few more of those on this list.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 3, tithe.
Oh.
Yeah. So in the Old Testament, God directly instructed his people to tithe, give 10% of their income to meet certain needs at the time.
Yep.
But New Testament gives us some other things, it seems like.
Yeah, we are not under the Old Testament law. And the tithes literally means a tenth.
Right.
So I think we have much more freedom, and freedom scares us, but in Christ there's freedom. And what we're called to do is give, and give generously, and give maybe even sometimes uncomfortably, but cheerfully.
Yeah.
Give
2
and support.
Corinthians 9, God loves a cheerful giver.
Right. So we give and we support the ministry that God has connected us to. And I was just reading, that part in 2 Corinthians, where, he was talking about how he didn't accept any money from the church in Corinth because he didn't want to have any, he knew their attitude wouldn't be good about it. And so the church in Macedonia was supporting him or whatever. Yeah. But he talks about the importance of, giving, supporting cheerfully. But it's not like a hard and fast. It has to be this number, etc.
Yeah, the right amount for you could be more and could be less.
Right.
It's less to do with the amount and more to do with the heart.
Yes.
The giving generously with whatever the 3 T's, right? Time, talents, and treasure.
Right.
Are we generous with those things, recognizing they're a gift from God, and it all belongs to Him anyway? And so I'm going to be generous with what I have.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. Number 4.
Quattro.
I looked at the
You're
first
live
couple
reacting
last week.
also. Okay.
This is all right. Number 4, because this article is in like slides where you click to go to
one
the
of
next
those ones.
one.
Okay,
and
got
so
it.
I didn't get to see the whole list.
Love it.
Number 4,
Okay.
include the Easter bunny and colored eggs in our celebrations.
Wait, so we do this, but it's not biblical.
Does anyone
Correct.
actually think the Easter bunny is in the
But
Bible?
do we so including it into our celebrations? Yes, a lot of us do that, or we have Easter eggs or whatever.
Yeah.
But yes, does anybody say, well, we celebrate this because bunnies are the first Pope, Peter, was a bunny. Peter Rabbit, and that's why the Pope hat looks like that. Yeah. It's to hide his ears.
See, I was thinking that at the resurrection, it was actually a bunny who was the first to see the resurrected Jesus.
Oh,
but because the bunny couldn't speak human language, he couldn't communicate what he saw, and so we had to wait till the woman. And it was a whole thing. Yeah. This whole thing's kind of weird.
So Matt, we have a whole podcast that we talked about last year, all of like the myths and things about Easter and if it's pagan, if the bunnies are that way. So go check out that episode. I don't think, like to your point, I don't think anybody really is saying we believe that those are biblical things. Right. We just think they're fun. Like we don't think Santa Claus and Rudolph are biblical. They're just fun.
Right.
Okay.
That's good.
We'll
move on from that one then. Number 5. Whoa. Okay. Pray the Lord's Prayer.
Whoa. Okay. I'm curious to hear what they say.
In many churches around the world, it is recited every single week.
Sure. I mean, in Catholicism, that is after your confession, they say, go say 5 Our Fathers and 4 Hail Marys.
But the question is, did Jesus intend this to be the corporate prayer?
Interesting.
Right? Because his disciples said, teach us to pray.
Right.
And then Jesus gave some practical tips, right? Don't call attention to yourself. Mm-hmm. And then he said, this then is how you should pray.
Not necessarily what
you should pray.
I've thought
so that's where they're kind of at, which to be fair, when I pray, I'm not reciting the Lord's Prayer, and then I'm moving on and calling it good, right?
We don't do it as this sort of formulaic. I've got to say these exact words. I don't, but a lot of people do, and there's times in which
it could be helpful.
We've done it, and sure, I don't think there's anything wrong. So let's step it back. I don't think there's anything wrong with praying the Lord's Prayer, but if you're just doing it kind of mindlessly, not thinking about the words you're saying, it's not like it's a magic formula. It is not Christian voodoo.
Right. And then the question is, what's the point of prayer?
Right.
Is it to recite words or to connect with God?
Right.
I think it's more the connect with God part. And therefore, if I'm just mindlessly reciting these words and they mean nothing to me, then it's worthless. It's frivolous. It's a waste of my time.
Right.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Jeremiah says, just like saying I love you to your wife.
If you just say it without mindlessly,
it,
then what's the point? Yeah, and I think we talked about doing a whole episode on prayer sometime, so stay tuned. All right, what's the next?
Number 6.
We're up to 6. Let's get it.
Okay. Read horoscopes to determine future events.
Yes.
Right, so this is astrology.
But again,
your destiny can be found in the pattern of the stars.
Okay, so I guess the way the list was set up, it wasn't that they think they're biblical. It's things people do that Christians do that aren't biblical.
Right.
What Christian is out there doing this?
You'd be surprised.
Really?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch that are reading their horoscope regularly.
There's a really good song by Weird Al that's a style parody of Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. So it's very 90s third wave ska that's all about horoscopes, and it's hilarious.
So here's a statement on them from the Billigram Evangelistic Association.
Okay.
Astrology is offensive to God because now, astrology, not astronomy.
Right, astronomy's fine.
It's good to study the planets and the stars and the galaxies because God created all that.
Flat Earth all the way.
Astrology, being my destiny, is found in its pattern, which maybe if that points me to the creator, then yes, it is. But we'll move on.
Right. Or the time that I'm born is what determines my personality. And now I can learn.
Or because I'm in Aries, I can only be compatible with this type of person.
Right.
And anyone who's this type of person, I mean, potentially, Enneagram is the modern day, right? Where we're saying you're this number, and you're only going to be this number, and you're going to interact with other people this way because you're this number.
Now, I will say,
I never read the quote.
To differentiate a little bit, at least the Enneagram starts with a test with you kind of diagnosing, and it says maybe these are your tendencies. It's not based, if the Enneagram test said, when's your birthday and are you left-handed?
True.
And then gave you a number, that would be very different.
Yes. Enneagram at least uses some of your character and personality and that type of stuff to determine. Yeah. All right. I only mostly hate Enneagram. I don't completely hate it. It's fine. All right. Billigram Association says this. Astrology is offensive to God because it attributes to planets and stars the power that belongs to God alone, and because it tries to find the will of God by other means than God has appointed. Throughout the Bible, God tells us that he will guide us. A Christian has no need for astrology with its futile hints because believers can turn instead to the guidance of God's word. So that's true. Yeah. Yeah. If you're actually Christians, if you're actually looking at your horoscope and you're believing it and you're like, oh, my day is set up because I read my morning horoscope, stop that. Set up your day by reading God's word.
Now, if it's, I read a fortune cookie when I get Chinese food, that's okay.
Right. It's if you read it and you just laugh because it was in the newspaper that you're reading and you're like, that's funny. Like I usually do with those fortune cookies, because some of them, they're hilarious. And the way that they're translated into English makes it even more hilarious. So, all right. Number 7. Oh, blame karma. So this person says, I've heard Christians jokingly credit bad karma as the cause of unfortunate events in their lives.
Right.
Or this person's even heard some people say, I must have done something bad in the past and now it's coming back to haunt me. This is very much not a Christian way to think. Bad karma. It's called, the consequence of sin. Right. The fallen, broken world we live in.
Right. And I mean, there's a biblical principle. You reap what you sow. And so if you are a jerk to people, and so then you have no relationships, that's not karma. Right. But if you were to, it's a similar thing where you are reaping the consequences. Right. Now, really, the karma thing would be like, oh, I must have done something bad in a previous life. Right. And that's why something bad is happening to me now. Yeah. That's where you would definitely be going way too far. It's okay to say, look at maybe how your own actions and choices have led to consequences, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And consequences for sinful action. Also, not just my own sinful action, but people around me. Yeah. Good and bad consequences is what Jeremiah just mentioned. But like remembering that God also generously lavishes us with his love and grace and mercy and kindness. Right. And so like I need to keep that in mind, because what scripture says, it's his kindness that leads me to repentance. Right. It's because of him that I can actually not be like, well, because of what I did back here, this is bound to happen to me. Right. No, I'm going to repent of that because of God's kindness. And out of that, I'm going to live this new life. Right. All right. That's an interesting one. Number 8, believing in luck and superstition.
I was thinking about that one next.
Knocking on wood, right?
Knock on wood. Actually, here's the one that I know a lot of Christians actually do. Like, I don't know a lot of Christians who really think it's bad to walk under a ladder or that you can't go to the 13th floor. But I know a lot of Christians who, if let's say you're at the grocery store and you're checking out and your total equals $6.66.
Yeah, they'll buy one.
That they'll buy something, or that they'll freak out, or that they'll think that that number in and of itself, by virtue of being that number, is evil. Whereas the entire point of Revelation, on a different note on that number, is that it's a number of the beast, and that it's connected to this beast, and that there's all of these other correlations to it. Then just being like, oh, that number is bad, is superstition.
Yep. Do you have like a lucky whatever?
So there's a quote from The Office where Michael Scott says, "I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious." And that makes me laugh every time. I've thought about creating, maybe I need to post this. Every Sunday I keep thinking about this, posting that meme, because I don't really think this. It's just now something funny I do. But every single Sunday I wear my Planning Center socks.
Yeah.
To say, look, nothing's going to go bad with Planning Center. And it never does. So
you're a little stitious.
I'm a little stitious. But I don't really think it will. I just think it's funny at this point.
You play D&D.
I do.
Do you have your lucky D20? The one that you're like, oh, I need to get my 20 here.
I don't have a lucky D20, but if I get a lot of bad rolls, there's a little jail that I put it in. And then I just recently had my friend Aaron print me the opposite. I said, okay, we've had dice jails. I've got a few. Can you... But I would like a dice throne that I can put ones that are really good. So I guess that would be lucky. Sure.
The issue is not like some of those smaller, cheesier things. I'm not as concerned about those, but the ones where like any sort of superstition, behavior, belief, whatever, that I'm putting the power to save me into something else, or like to actually determine something major in my life apart from the power of God, that's where I have the problem. So like, oh, I haven't broken my ankle yet playing baseball this season, knock on wood.
Right.
And you actually knocked on wood because you thought that was going to prevent your ankle from breaking. I'm like, you got problems.
Yeah.
I'll sometimes say knock on wood, but I'm usually just joking and laughing about it because it's like a cultural, silly thing that I remembered hearing a whole bunch growing up. I don't actually think that if I didn't, and I'll usually actually knock on my head, and I don't think my head is wooden. Though, I don't know. I don't know what happened to me when I was a kid.
When I was a kid, speaking of being a kid.
When I was a young warthog.
I used to think, when I was pretty little, that when I really wanted something for Christmas, that I needed to make sure that every night I just thought about it. And got
the
that
power of positive thinking.
And apparently I inadvertently created The Secret. If you ever read that book, this whole idea that like you attract what you think about, and you know, positive thoughts attract positive things, and negative. I could have been a spiritual new age guru had I written a book about it at that age. Cause I don't remember when The Secret came out, but I feel like me being a kid predated it.
All right. Number 9.
Number 9.
Drink to get drunk.
Drink to get drunk.
Okay. Some Christians are still consuming alcohol to the point of drunkenness.
Right.
Even though scripture's pretty clear on that part of it. Right. We've talked about alcohol on here.
Yeah.
And it is the drunkenness that is clearly the sin in scripture. And so that's a problem. And then, you know, using Corinthians 10, 1 Corinthians 10, whatever I do, whether I eat or drink, do it all for the glory of God, right? So anything I do, any activity, am I doing it towards the glory of God?
So you're going to do a keg stand, do it for the glory of God.
I'm probably not going to do a keg stand because I don't see a way that's
whatever you
glory.
Eat or drink, do it for the glory of God. So you're going to do shots, do it for the glory of God.
If you can figure out a way to do that, then maybe. Yeah, I think ultimately that key is not getting drunk.
Now, we have had at least one, and then I think I did it as a replay. We had an episode about this, can a Christian drink?
Right.
And that question is more nuanced than maybe yes or no.
100%. Yep.
Because some can and some can't.
Yeah.
But go back and listen to that if you want to hear all of our complete thoughts on the issue.
And the final one.
Number 10.
Make a lot of people mad.
That's it? You make a lot of people mad? Oh.
And it's one where the Bible's pretty quiet on this issue.
Oh, boy. Now I'm really excited.
Retire.
Whoa. The Bible doesn't really say.
It doesn't talk about it.
Okay, so
But in the Old Testament, it does talk about the Levitical priests were to stop working at like the age of 50
right. So here's
in the temple. Stop working in the
here's
temple.
where potentially. I mean, I guess I can hear what it has to say about it.
Yeah.
But here's where potentially there can be some issues with this, because I think there can be a concept that the idea of retirement is not only am I stopping work, I don't have to really do anything.
Right.
Like, I'm going to just play
Yes.
golf. I'm not going to like that. Even if you retire from your job, your work of ministry for God never ends.
100%.
You still are hopefully being discipling others,
100%.
contributing to the body. Like, hey, those are my 3 points on my sermon on last week. But hopefully, hopefully you are still active in what God has given you to do.
Yeah, and that's where she kind of sets it up as, because retirement is a relatively modern phenomenon.
Right.
If you're physically able, you're going to do something right. And so the issue is, sure, retire from that primary source of income job thing that you have,
Right.
but never retire from serving God.
Right.
It's that we say it all the time. If I'm not dead, I'm not done. Right?
Yeah.
So keep going, keep serving, keep doing everything as if unto the Lord. No, you don't get to just show up to church on a Sunday morning for 1 hour a week and say, well, I already did my time, I'm done.
Right.
No. My little Jesus juke is, what if right before going to the cross, you're just like, you know what? I think I've done enough here.
Right.
Right? We serve
enough.
out of a response to his love, his generosity, his kindness, his goodness, his faithfulness. Like, we get to serve and love. And like, you think about it, you're going to spend eternity with Jesus.
Yes.
That's a long time for him to give you the side and be like, well, you kind of gave up on me those last 15 years of your life.
But will he?
I don't know. He might.
I think he's too nice for that.
He is a kind, loving. Well, he flipped tables.
That's true. Do you think in the new creation there will be a line to see him?
Or will he be everywhere at once?
Well, he'll still be a physical, incarnated, resurrected self.
Times 6.12
I don't
billion.
think you have the time. No. Or is it the kind of thing where you don't mind waiting in line for 50 years?
Because it's like a vapor.
Yeah. Or we could schedule the appointment. All right, I'll see you, Jesus, in 2.3 million years. I'm going to go ride a bicycle with wings to Mars.
I'm going to go praise you over here in the meantime.
I think we'll get to...
Ride bicycles to Mars?
Yeah. Do you ever think... All right, so
is that going to be a part of our
here's a
end
question.
times discussion we have? Like,
Here's
what
a
actually
question.
the new heaven, new earth will be like?
We can bring that up. Because here's the thing. When we are in a newly... I think we sometimes forget this. We will be created... in this new heaven, new earth. It's a physical embodiment. It's not just you're floating on a cloud for eternity strumming a harp, biblically speaking. And we know that in the original creation, there were things to do. We've often said, work is not a result of the fall. So for instance, is there a reason to think that C.S. Lewis on the new earth stops writing books as he learns even more in depth about God? I don't know why he wouldn't, or that we don't write music or create art or movies or technology.
It seems like everything's going to just be more purposed,
Right.
filled with more
Right.
joy while doing it.
And so we have an eternity. He'll fix his theology. Exactly. I don't think that, and some people have
C.S.
thought
Lewis a
this,
heretic?
He had some things we wouldn't agree with. I don't think it's like you get to eternity and instantly just have all knowledge. Like, I don't think there's any reason to think that.
Which side of eternity are we on?
The other. And so if we have an eternity ahead of us in a physical embodied creation, if the universe is as big as it is now, could part of that be because now we have an eternity to explore and see everything God made?
Yeah.
So yes, maybe you're not going to ride a bicycle with wings to Mars, but will we be able to go explore the vast depths of space? Maybe.
Here's all I know.
Okay.
I don't think we'll ever be bored.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. That's good.
Right.
This was fun.
That's a good list.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's end today with a couple reader messages. We got one. It said, fun episode. I watched the Rogan episode. We had talked about Joe Rogan and that Christian apologist, and it was very good. An observation was at the end of the show, Joe was asked what he thought of Jesus, and he deflected his answer. So as Christians living in a God-rejecting world, when we have these conversations, how much should we push for an answer to that question versus allowing those who are talking with sidestep to answer, to preserve face, or even the relationship for future conversations?
Yeah, I think that last part would matter. Am I ever going to get a chance to talk to this person again?
Right.
Do I already have like an ongoing relationship where I know this is going to come up again tomorrow? Now, the next question is, we're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Right.
Or the next thought, right? So I would think in that situation, maybe I would have asked it one more time to push a little more. Right. But who is Jesus?
Right.
He sidesteps again and be like, all right, I'll let you think about that. Come back and let's talk again sometime about this.
Right.
And I would think that's probably I would probably treat it the same with most people. I can't imagine a situation where I'm going to get all up in your face and not let you leave my presence until you answer clearly that question.
Right.
Because that has the tendency to then push people away further.
Right.
And I don't want to be held responsible for pushing people further away from Christ.
Right.
Right. Like that's the last thing as a Christ follower that I want to be held accountable for.
Right.
So
I like that. We also got an email that said, it was an article called "My Browser Tabs Were Getting Out of Hand, so I let Gemini 2.0 take over. Here's how it went." And this was an Gemini,
okay.
which is not Jim and I. It's Google's AI, and how this guy said, I had way too many tabs. I installed Gemini has this new feature where it can read your screen if you allow it.
This is from when we were mocking you on your phone, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And so he had the AI help him sort through his tabs and figure out what he needed open, and so that's a good idea. I could try it, see how it goes on. But it's on my phone.
Would it then like
my computer
bookmark?
I don't know. My computer, I was about to say it's only my phone that has a million tabs, but no, I have 3 different logged in browsers on my computer, like Edge on my work profile, my personal profile, and another one for the church. And each one has at least 30 tabs open at any given time on one of my computers. And then I have another computer with a similar thing, those 3 windows open, but different sets of tabs.
I did notice on my Chrome browser on my phone, there's like a new like inactive tab section.
Okay.
And so there's actually like 15 or so in there that
interesting.
They moved because I didn't open it within the last however long. So it moved into this new tab.
Right.
Or this new folder, I guess. But I have one currently open active tab on my Google Chromes.
Speaking of AI, I had a doctor's appointment recently, and he said, "Hey, you might be somebody who'd be interested in this. Do you mind?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is awesome." He said, "We have this new thing where as long as you consent, I can turn on my phone, and it will listen as I'm talking to you over the course of this appointment, and it will AI write all of the Wow. I almost said sermon notes. I meant visit notes. It will write all of the visit notes of this appointment for us so that instead of me sitting here typing as I'm talking and only, having to split my attention, all your visit notes can just be generated by our conversation. Is that okay? I was like, absolutely. That's great. So I think that's a cool use for AI to take away some of the tediousness of the doctor so we can focus on the patient interaction. Mm-hmm. That's awesome, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. Next week, we're talking Matthew 24. Is it the end of the world as we know it? It's going to be a fun conversation. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.